Ready?
Oh.
All right, so like normal, this is gonna kind of be a mixture of our ALC meeting as well as numbers, because if you recall last week, numbers were not finished through international because of some system updates. So, but as usual, we're gonna start with bucket fills and something good. So who wants to start?
I'm gonna bucket fill Kami. I came to her with a problem. And, just talk through it. And so thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Jessica's taking me to Puerto Vallarta to figure out where she's gonna marry me at.
This is time to go, like, we need to talk, we need some guidance, Jessica, like.
It's not legal, so.
That's gonna be fun. When do you leave?
Saturday.
Oh,
That's really great.
that is awesome.
Last nonstop flight down there, so we can't come back until like November 16th.
Right.
The first nonstop coming back.
Perfect timing.
We've got people that can, take care of the business.
Well,
while you're gone.
I told my model this week.
Oh, so you're done. You're good for the year. Awesome. You guys have fun. What else? What else is good?
I have
Wendy?
two things. One, I want to bucket fill Melanie with Great North. This week, I had a client who reached out and said, I can't find my closing documents and you know where I get those? And I replied and copied Melanie on it and said, Melanie will have everything you need, if you need anything else within a couple hours. This is at like 6 o'clock at night. I got this email from him and I replied.
On April 14th, right before taxes, right?
Yes, exactly. And she replied, within
Yeah.
a couple hours, had it sent everything over to him, and it was just like such a great example of extraordinary service and responsiveness, and I know they were really impressed, so that was a good feel, that her on my team. And then I have a closing today, and they referred to me by parents they sold last year who just had their first child, and oh, happy day.
Awesome, awesome. Who else? Rick?
On
I
Friday,
just want to know, is it because John's here that everyone's talking today? Because it usually takes like 5 minutes for people to do bucket fills.
Yeah.
Is it John?
Yeah.
I'm sure John. It's John. I think it's John. Ponytail.
goodbye.
All right, Rick.
I think the leadership in the front. That's
Yeah,
On Friday, Sherry and I finally successfully closed our second largest sale transaction.
Awesome.
At, 3.5 purchase price plus a $500,000 improvement to the home, so a $4 million deal. And yesterday we scrambled to be part of the Netflix documentary at the house for our client that's on his life. So Jordan came up from Mankato and got all dressed up and we had a lot of fun. yesterday.
Jordan's like, if you're in this, I'm in this. Okay.
It's a little convincing to get her here, but we had a lot of fun, just the three of us. And
So you're gonna actually be in the Netflix series?
Think you make some
we'll
sense.
see what they-
What did we make?
Let's make a cut.
We all, I don't know,
Awesome.
it's cameo and Celery being the glare.
That's super cool. Fun.
I still remember that when I was making dinner in my house and all of a sudden I hear, I'm like, was that Brahma's
Yeah.
voice? I run out there and there's Brahma coming through the commercial. I'm like, okay, there you
I
go.
would panic if all of a sudden I'm in my house. And like Brahma's voice shows up, I'd be like, what did I do?
What's the problem? Yeah.
Think about that.
I was gonna say, is Brahma in that? I always think of that as Sherry's commercial.
Hey, I have to say something very funny about the Stella commercial. There are three versions. One in which only Sherry speaks, one in which I speak, and one in which both of us speak, and they are played at different times of day.
I heard that was just peaceful. It was just wrong.
And that's.
Cause I rewound it. I'm like,
And my cousin called me and said, I saw you in the commercial. Why was the woman the only one who spoke? You didn't say anything. Then we figured it out. Yeah, it's very funny.
What else? What else we got that's good?
I want to bucket fill the leadership team because I've been in and out of the office and Lydia has been so helpful with our clients. And then also Heather was amazing when we went to family reunion. Candy's always so sweet to her clients. And then really, Kami, you have been amazing with coaching. We love it here, yeah.
thanks.
course.
What else we got?
I shared something with Derek yesterday and said, hey, talk me out of something. And he gave me some tweaks. And then, he didn't talk me out of it. And then this morning, he sent me a message this morning and said, hey, what if you did this? And I think that's so cool that our businesses are separate businesses, and yet as a friend, as a peer, hey, I'm thinking about you even when we're not in the same spot working, and that was really good, so I appreciate that a lot. So thanks, man.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Can I do one more thing that I'm working on? I'm
Sure
thankful,
can, Kevin.
I'm thankful that I had the money to pay my taxes. Yeah, I'm working on seeing things differently, so I'm thankful.
I've always said, someday I hope to pay $1 million a year in taxes.
Oh, man.
Ugh,
Well, I understand what that would mean.
I'm like, anything else?
Buckfield is a Zurich, ran my first off, and they've been super helpful with answering questions and helping me through that process.
Okay. And how long you been licensed? Like a month? Yeah, yeah. And your first offer?
A friend threw a kickball league we play in together.
Kickball. Every night. Kickball.
Yeah.
Way to go.
I want to bucket fill our team leader because she's still to this day, even though I probably have driven her completely crazy, just arbitrarily at times sends me positive affirmation about something, you know, and I know I'm not the only one, you know, so I know that she just. You're
Way to go. Now Scott's mad.
But no, it's just nice, like you guys were talking about, you know, this isn't just business, now we know each other and there's some support here. It's more of a family, you know, environment than it is. I mean, that's-
All right. We good? Moving on. April calendar. So again, I know I say it every single time, but the calendar, you can go on and click and you can actually register for any of the events that are on there. Today we do have our R&R at
Baja House.
Baja House at what time?
At 4, and a
Okay.
really crappy day like this, walking into Baja House is a good.
It's always fun there. Like, it's always fun. And we put R&R because it's not necessarily a happy hour. There are people that do not have cocktails. We have appetizers, but there's always really good conversation, either personally or even about business things that are going on. So if that's something you haven't been there and you're like, oh, I don't wanna do that, that's okay. Still show up between 4 and 6. Always a good time. Then we do have tomorrow, we have Deal Domino. So it's actually going to be a little fun because it's going to be here and it's myself and Eric Peterson. And we switch some things around. So it's going to be him and I masterminding about how awesome he is at business. So you should probably look at that because it's really taking one listing or one buyer and how do you turn that into multiple transactions. So it'll be a fun thing to talk about and have questions around. I also have some information from one of our teams here on what they do in their checklist to make sure that they're marketing their listings and what that looks like timeline wise. We also have our call night tomorrow night. Well, Bethany Nelson Group has their call night. What time does that start again?
From 4 to 6.
So from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock tomorrow night, they open that up to everybody here. So if you're like, man, I'm either behind on lead gen or I want to listen to people lead generate because I'm not super comfortable with it, show up because either one, you're going to get some value out of it, even if you make 2 to 3 calls. Again, 4 to 6 tomorrow night. We have buyer contracts class with Kevin next Tuesday, and then we have our last collective team meeting with David Arbit next week at the Edina Market Center and Leadership Academy next Thursday. I know that I've asked a lot of you about this event on Friday, the 26th. So this is our regional event, and it is actually broker agnostic. So there are a ton of agents from multiple different brokerages that are on panels. So if it's one where you are a learning-based agent, and I know that there are a lot of you right now struggling with different things, whether or not it's lead gen, whether or not it's, you know, how do I do events? How do I kind of connect with my people? There are multiple different panels that are going on. And these are people that you haven't heard from probably before, unless you went to outside events. So that again is next Friday, I believe, what is the time frame from it? 9 to 4, and it's at the JW Marriott, it's $99. I guarantee that you've spent $99 on something that doesn't have an ROI like this. Would you guys probably agree on that?
Featuring Jose too.
And Jose is also on there, on one of the panels. Who's all signed up for
A
this?
couple of the panelists, or what are a couple of the?
There's a events one, there's standout on social media, there's wealth building, there's, Jose's on the Rainmaker one, there's a luxury advantage. And this
Does
is
that say lead gen?
Yep, and there's a lead gen one, which is also Eric Peterson on there as well, which you'll see him tomorrow too. Who is signed up for this?
I am.
I am.
All right, so we got two people in the back. You signed up as well? Okay,
I'm
if
signing
you're
up.
not, here's the QR code. Sign up. Again, if you take 1 to 2 things, even one thing out of this and implement it and get one piece of business, is that worth $99?
Yes.
Because if you can't get one piece of information that you can implement in that amount of time, you just weren't listening. Because these are some really heavy producers, right? And that will pay tenfold the $99 that it costs to go there. Plus, you can network with people inside the brokerage and outside the brokerage.
Yeah, so having friends at other real estate companies, please invite them. It's not going to be Keller.
It's not at all.
None at all.
Nope. Yeah, so if there's someone that you know at another brokerage, they're like, hey, you should come to this training because it's gonna be great. Let me know. Any questions around that? No? All right. Required module is gonna be May 8th in person here. And this is actually taught by Mar. So if you don't have your CEs done and don't have the required module, it's always so much better in person than online. So again, feel free to sign up for this. There is sponsorship there. So it's only $30, which is also cheaper than if you do it online.
And it is required.
I was gonna say, even if you have lots of credits, this is one that you have to take.
Have you not done it yet? Is that why you're scanning it, Kevin?
It's not
Oh.
due yet.
I haven't either.
You guys just
By the way,
said that from Leah?
Five, now
Oh,
there
there's
are
only-
4, cause I
now
just
there's
signed
4.
up.
There's 4 spots left.
If I will just say, if you go on there and are like, oh, there's no more room, please connect with Lydia and I and.
You just gave everyone permission.
Yeah, I know. We said there are 4 spots here.
Well, I really want everyone to get the module done.
I've got an extra front row ticket I'll sell for $300.
Get it on SeatGeek right now.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, I see how it works. I was gonna say, I just signed up for free, but then the next
It
spot
goes-
says, I give my market center leadership team approval to charge my office.
Yeah, I will put it on your monthly invoice.
Nice.
Put on your monthly
That works.
invoice.
Couldn't be easier,
In May.
guys.
Put it on the tab.
Make your
Put it on the
requirements.
tab.
All right, next. Red Day. Do you want to talk about Red Day a little bit? So we are still doing it with Edina.
We're still doing it with the Edina Market Center.
Okay.
I don't exactly know what we're doing, with the city of Minnetonka. But we're gonna meet here beforehand and then go do some projects. So more to come on that. But then if you look at our every meal, we are.
It was $26 still yesterday. Oh, last week's
It was
slide.
last week.
Oh, okay, I was like, oh.
But yeah, so we're winning, which that's fun.
We're winning.
The Edina office only
That doesn't
raised
help.
$140.
I mean, it does.
They were
last.
They've like raised $500. We did put this, the link and everything on, Facebook. You can grab it from there and then share it with your, sphere if you want, to help us raise that $5,000. It's for a really good cause. They help kids with meals through the weekend, also through the, summer. And so, there's still a lot of food insecurity out there, and it's across, the whole metro. It's not just one area. Like, they're helping kids all over the place, so. We also have a match donation, right? Is that correct? Did you talk about that? I'll let Eric talk about that.
No, yeah, it'll stay out there. 10 loans. If we hit 10, we'll do 2,500 towards it. So
Let's get them 10. Those don't have to be
Then we'll
closed,
do it.
right? They just have to be in process,
we
right?
can be pretty close.
Pretty cool.
Pre-approvals, right?
Yeah, right.
Property in Lockett, yep.
Awesome. All right, so we are gonna do March numbers.
Just the rankings.
Just the rankings.
Sorry.
It says numbers, so, just the rankings. Again, there are some really cool things that are happening on here this month, just in regards to successes. So if you guys could clap, cause it always feels good when people are cheering you on with what's going on. Is that fair? Awesome. All right, so listings taken, we have Colleen Schultz with 2, Scott Knight. We have Colleen. For closed volume, we have Chris Anderson. So the closed GCI for or top individual teams listings taken, Cole and Company at 3. Volume, we have Cole and Company at 1.5. Closed volume, we have the Strobel Group at 1.5. Remember the numbers from like the actual numbers from last week. Like when you're looking at this, it's not normal that we always have 1 million as the lowest number on there. So I mean, when you start looking at it, there's some really cool numbers happening. So closed GCI, we got the Strobel Group in the number 1 spot, the Jose Hilario. For listings taken on the top teams, we have Degmarea Enterprise at 4. And Victory at 1. Degmarea Enterprise at 2.6. Even bigger numbers here for closed volume, we've got Degmarea Enterprise at 5. So GCI, Degmarea Enterprise is number 1 spot. All right, listings taken for groups. We have Sorrento team at 8 listings. Listings and inventory, right? I'm like, these numbers are like from individuals all the way to the groups. Those are some big numbers. Are you guys feeling a difference in the listings? Are you feeling a difference in the listings that you're taking? Are you winning more or are you just going on more appointments? Or both? Live question.
Cumulative effect of effort over time
Okay,
for us.
for you guys,
Yeah.
okay. Tony, how about you guys with 8?
Pretty.
Consistent? Okay. Awesome. All right, so listings taken volume, Sorrento team at 14 million. We got public at 14. Closed volume, we have the Sorrento team at 8.9. Closed GCI, Sorrento team in the number 1 spot. Those are some pretty cool numbers for March. like really cool numbers. Because if you go back 90 days, I mean, where does that put us for lead gen on those and actually getting them under contract? It's the times where some people weren't necessarily working, right? We got back into lead generation and we were working when others weren't. So congratulations, guys. All right, commercial listings taken, KDB Commercial and Vision with 1 listing taken by. Awesome. So we are now going to start the ALC portion of this. Normally, this is a full meeting, but again, since we didn't have those numbers, we're going to be kind of broker minute is afterwards, Kevin. So do I hear a motion to start the April ALC meeting? A motion to start. Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Awesome. So last year, we haven't had a lot of ALC meetings because we had family reunion and then we had the collective team meeting last month. That kind of took that spot. So we're getting back into it. So if you've never been to one of these, this is the Agent Leadership Council portion of the meeting. And again, this is a discussion between myself and the agents that are on that leadership council. We go through, number 1, the book that we're reading this year, some of the ahas that they're getting from that and how they're implementing it in their business. And then number 2, we actually go through what their business looks like and how they're tracking it and how they're tracking for the year. The reason for this is so that you see the top producers in our market center that have chosen to be on this and how they run their business, right? It allows you to see that all 3 of these people run their business very differently, and their success is different, right? But we always have ups and downs, so that it's an open book. So at the end of this, it's always one to thank them because it's a really vulnerable place to be, to say, hey, I'm either tracking or I'm not tracking where I was intending to be, right? There's some months where it says, hey, I'm in the red and I actually didn't have a profit. So it takes a lot of courage to be up here and kind of open your business to all of you. So that being said, let's start with, we've had a few months for Dare to Lead. Kind of an aha from the book so far.
Part 1 of the book is about leading with vulnerability and how that can shape the way we do things and the teams around us, and making sure that we, I guess, don't lead with power, and we come back and actually not necessarily share things about ourselves, but understand what the circumstances are and where people are coming from, and we take into account kind of what the situation is and be vulnerable about that and make sure that's our leadership style. So it goes into, the 16 different 16 different topics about that, but that's kind of
How have you implemented that in your business, or what did you take from that you might be excelling at or something that you're going to work on?
I read it yesterday.
So nothing's been implemented yet, although there are some takeaways, either personally or professionally, that I'm thinking about. The last thing they were talking about, leading with power and how we were raised, comes through in how we lead others, whether it's our families or our teams or the people around us, and just the difference in the way we portray ourselves and how we take that into how we lead later in life. And it's been impactful for maybe how I need to change things with my kids, or even just be aware of that type of situation. So.
So this spot talks about vulnerability and how important vulnerability is in a way that we lead, and sometimes organizations can be what they call armored organizations, or armored leadership, or daring leadership, vulnerable leadership. And so there are 16 on each, as Jelena said. But one of the things that stuck on me is overarching, that before I came into before I came into real estate, right, I worked at a church for a long time, worked with kids and families and everything. And we always talked about shame and the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt drives you to correct something, shame drives you away from something, and I can't share that. And shame is what keeps us all from being vulnerable. Like there's a spot where it says, especially with numbers, some of us at numbers come up and we're like, this is really exciting. And others of us are probably sitting there kind of in turtle shells going, I'm not measuring up, which means I'm not good enough, which means I'm not going to get vulnerable enough to ask a question and different things. And one of the spots that stuck out to me, and I don't know why it stuck out to me, but Kami, you and I had actually talked about this on a different spot too, was if I can find it here highlighted, is on one of the ways that we do armored leadership is by numbing. And I just want to read this spot. It says, we all numb. We all have different numbing agents of choice: food, work, social media, shopping, television, video games, porn, booze from beer and brown paper bags, and socially acceptable but equally dangerous fine wine hobby. But we all do it, and we chronologically and compulsively turn these numbing agents into addictions, not just taking off the edge. Numbing or taking the edge doesn't have the same consequences as addiction, but they're nonetheless severe and life-altering for one reason. And this is the spot that I think is something that is really powerful. We cannot selectively numb emotion. If we numb the dark, we numb the light. If we take off the edge of pain and discomfort, we are by default taking the edge off of joy, love, belonging, and other emotions that give meaning to our life. And that's what you and I talked about is whatever that spot you're finding comfort in your pain is actually sometimes it's numbing you from actually experiencing the full joy that could be there too. So I just thought, as I look at it, where am I numbing myself from experiencing what I really want to experience? So
I think it goes back to sheltering yourself, right?
Right.
In any situation. And I think with relationships in real estate, sometimes we shy away from the bad because we don't want to deal with it, right? But really you can unlock something really great by diving into it.
Right. So then I got to give a cue too, right? So this, and then it talks about daring leadership is non-vulnerable or whatever they called it. Armored leadership allows us to numb. Daring leadership is setting boundaries and finding real comfort. So in the end, the cure for numbing is developing tools and practices that allow you to lean into discomfort and renew your spirits. Renew your spirit. First, when you're feeling that edge, instead of asking ourselves, what's the quickest way to make these feelings go away? Ask, what are these feelings and where did they come from? And second, figure out what brings you real comfort and renewal, not just numbing.
Thank you. Kevin is like a guidance counselor, isn't he? We should have gone first. Yeah, follow out. I really should have gone.
What are you gonna learn, Derek?
Right. Gotta let Jelena like paraphrase the chapter first, though.
That was last year.
Right.
We're better this year.
All right, so as armored leadership, driving perfectionism and fostering fear of failure. Over the past week, I've had a couple challenging transactions and stuff going on that I don't necessarily love it. And my client has been within his rights, right? And I was like really feeling poorly about this. And at some point in time, I just had this realization, like my client's stuff is not my life. And it is not my fault that this stuff is happening. And yet, even as an agent of 20 some years, it's still very easy to get trapped in that and feel like I'm doing something wrong or it's my fault, or even taking responsibility when the responsibility isn't yours. And that may be admirable, but it doesn't need to be taking place in here, right? So I don't even know if that's really in the book, but something I was dealing with.
I love Derek.
right?
But you just got vulnerable, which is what the whole book is about.
Right.
Thank you. This section on fear of failure really hit me too, because I feel like there's just so much of that goes on in our business with people not taking chances and not knocking on doors or making phone calls or whatever. And we all just have to get over it. I mean, ask a simple question and ask for some commitment. And if people aren't willing to do that, then ask again in another day or in another couple minutes or whatever. Just keep failing.
It's really is the fear of rejection, right? And the failing when you come to that. And I don't think Barry's in here, but Barry's new. Okay, he's not yet. And I was on the phone dialing and he was in the conference room dialing and he just came in and he's like, gosh, I love rejection. I was like, me too, right? And like when you tell yourself that piece, I mean, not like I really love rejection, but what I do love about it is it's gonna get me to an appointment. It's gonna get me to where I need to be, right? And that rejection is them not rejecting me. I can tell you to this day, all of my door knocking, all the calls to agents, half of them remember my name, half of them don't. The ones that yell at me definitely don't remember my name. And I'll call them back and they're like, when did we talk? Right? Like they don't remember it because that was a moment of time that either they just said, no, move on, call them again. Like it's really, I think we harbor that in, like you were saying, like, oh, they hate me. They don't even remember your name. Like, to be fair, usually, unless you did something to offend them.
Yeah, I called the guy, asked him for business. I just ruined his day. Right? I didn't even ask for business. I said, hey, do you have a need? I just ruined your day. And that's like what we feel when we knock on the door, like, and we walk away and go, I have put that phone down like, man, I should not make another call. I just ruined that guy's day. And instead I go, man, that guy just had a bad day, right? And to be able to release what he's experiencing, not what I'm experiencing, and they go, okay, I'm just simply making a phone call, asking a question. It's not bad if I get rejected. It's not bad if they say, don't ever call me again. It's not bad. I was door knocking. I'm in a spot where it's like lead gen, let's go. And my team is helping me with that. And so I text Derek, just knock 50 doors, talk to people, and he goes, oh, it was something like, and how many people yelled at you? And no one did, right? But that's the anxiousness that we sometimes get is, what's that person gonna say as I tap on their door? I had one guy that didn't come to the door, he just went like that, and then you just walk away. It's good, right?
Well, you still put the flyer on the door and then you walk away.
No, I don't. Some people do, or I see the no soliciting sign, I just turn around. Okay, that's just like a no thank you right up front.
And you said, you fear of like potentially ruining somebody's day or something like that. Never mind the 10 calls that we've all gotten during the day where we've either hung up on the person, telemarketers or whatever. I mean, at least I do it all the time.
Other recruiters.
I'm sure you guys don't, right? The recruiters. But like all that stuff is happening all the time.
Never ruined your day, right?
No, right, right.
Well, that's the thing. If you ever come home and you have like the painting thing on, it's like, hey, we're painting in the neighborhood or whatever. Have you ever like taken that flyer and called them up and just yelled at them? Has that ever happened to you?
No.
So why would you ever think that that's going to happen to you as a real estate agent? And if it did, there's something seriously going on in that person's life. And I would take just a second to just be like, hey, I'm really sorry, but is everything okay? Because that was a very, very interesting reaction. Did I offend you in some way? And the moment you ask them if you offended them in some way, someone steps back and is like, man, no, this is what happened. And the reason I say this is because I actually did get yelled at a lot when I door knocked, because that's how I built my business and I did a lot of it. And the moment you like disarm them, like, did I offend you so that you give them the opportunity to apologize and say, I'm really sorry if I did? They're like, oh, no, sorry. I just got off the phone with whatever and I took it out on you. That's normally what happens. Like, it's nothing about you. I think we have this, maybe it's an ego that everything's about us with the reaction.
About an ego.
And it's not, like, it has nothing to do with you.
Is it appropriate to ask a question? You guys just go a little bit further. Can we ask questions? I don't remember.
Well, sure.
last week,
I'm like,
I sent an unsolicited letter to somebody without postage and no return address. And I got an email from that person laying me out because she got charged 67 cents by the mail.
situation.
She was in full-blown attack mode, right? I apologized over email, a couple different ways, and I can't remember what I said.
40.
No, you know what I did? I bought her a $10 gift card to Starbucks and sent it to her automatically. And immediately upon receipt, she's like, oh my gosh, this is way different than I thought this was going to be. She's like, I'm so sorry that I said that.
And now she's Eric's client.
Down there, yeah.
To be fair, that happens.
Yeah.
Like, that absolutely happens. I mean, John was my broker when there were things that I shouldn't have probably done back when I was.
A lot of things.
There was a lot of things. And there were a lot of letters and emails that I got, like, we were essentially, I was building within Edina and kind of the first people to really start tearing down houses in Minneapolis and Edina. People did not like it at all. And it was me. I was the one ripping them down by hand supposedly, and then building the big one. I don't know, but that's what they thought. And I got so many nasty emails that I had a whole folder that has angry people in it. Like, that was the name of the folder. 4 of those people became my clients and I sold their house. 4 of them. Within a year, they kept it, whatever they were angry at, and I still sold their house. Because they realized whatever they said wasn't gonna stop what was happening, and they capitalized on it. And they realized it wasn't me. So I'm like, it happens, and they do turn into clients. You just can't lash out at them the same way. Like, the apology, and I'm so sorry I offended you, it'll come back in the end, right?
So the quick question is, have you guys gone into like the calls and the door knocking with the mindset that that you have something to offer to them? You have something that you're gonna bring to them. You're gonna give them an advantage in life as you approach the door versus typically when you're thinking you're door knocking, how many can I get to? How many potential listings can I get? How is this gonna grow my business? How am I gonna farm the neighborhood? How am I gonna get, this is I gonna get from that. The problem with the secondary mindset is that when you go in that way and that person responds negatively, it is a reflection on you because it is about you. Versus if you go in with the mindset that you actually have something amazing that you can provide them to help them. And if they say no, well, what is the big deal if somebody doesn't want your help? It's not a reflection on you, right? If they don't listen to what you're going to provide them, then they're just choosing to not, they don't need your help. They don't want your help. They're not interested in that. So I'm just wondering if you guys have considered, and I'm sure, you know, as part of the book, that difference in mindset.
Sure, right? That's that whole thing that we all know. When we come with a contribution versus with the lack, we show up differently. And for sure that's the case. I just on the whole conversation or walking away, I've been thinking about filling the gap, like how we fill the gap of when something goes awry or when something's just different. And I have this client that I just helped. So it's like an estate, and his brother needed to move out of the house in order to list his house. And so brother moved out, we closed. It's been like 2 weeks. I'm not getting a response back from the now brother that has to sell the house. So I sent a message that said, hey, haven't heard from you I sent you a few messages. I haven't heard from you. What can I do to help? And he said, nothing right now. And I was just talking to my financial advisor, who is where I got the lead from. And when I'm in a spot where I'm like not in a great spot, I go, dude, this guy's writing me off. Like, and I can fill that gap any way I want. Like, why would you not return my text? And then I text you and you say, nothing right now. He's writing me off. And then I just talked to my financial attorney. He's like, or my financial advisor. He's like, oh yeah, he has a lot of things he's just putting together. I'm sure he's going to connect with you next week for the next. But how we fill that gap of oftentimes has to do with where are we feeling vulnerable at that spot? How am I entering into that? Am I feeling shame about something I did? And I thought that's a really important thing. As we do door knocking, as we do as we get, clients that call us and say, hey, something's not how I expected it after the close. How we fill that gap, or when we reach out and that person never responds until they do, you know, all those different things are really powerful with what we choose to fill that gap with.
There was one piece, last part to share, and then we actually have to move this along because you need some time in broker minutes. So.
I'm needy.
I know. I mentioned this to the PC group this morning, and if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. Like, I highly recommend it for personal growth and business wise of just connecting with people. But I mentioned this, and I actually had posted about it today. I drop off my youngest daughter all the time at school, right? And it's interesting when you watch Maddie. Maddie is a very unique individual that has been happy since the day she was born. Like, we'd skip to school and she'd say, you know, I said, how are you so happy? Well, why wouldn't I be? And that has been her mantra since she was a small child. Like, she didn't walk, she skipped. Like, we were walking and she was skipping. And she has had friends throughout the years. They've changed over time. They're still the same friends, but for the past, I don't know how many weeks, this one friend is her solid friend that she ends up meeting. So I drop her off at school, and this little girl, you know, they're in 5th grade, is standing there at the corner just waiting for Maddie to be dropped off. And she's kind of like dancing. She's like, oh, I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait, right? Like, my friend's coming. And all of a sudden I see Maddie get out of the car, and she's just running to her friend. Her friend has this biggest smile on her face. Maddie has the biggest smile on her face. They hug and they just start walking to school, right? And they're talking and they're laughing and all these things. And I said to the PC group today, and part of it was in this book, right? When's the last time that you saw someone and was so excited that you smiled and you were so full of joy that it was like that, right? You don't have to dance, you don't have to skip. But what I think we're missing is the connection piece. We do it out of necessity. That wasn't necessity this morning, or the day before, or tomorrow. They desire to connect to each other in whatever way that is. And let me tell you, it's very surface level because all they talk about is skincare. But either way, that brings them joy, right? Like, think about that as you think about your life. Do you think about it personally or you think about it professionally? How are you actually connecting to people? And if that's not the connections that you are having, where there's pure joy when you see that person, or it's one that you want to connect with them, maybe it's time to not have them in your life, right? And then go find new people that do bring you that. Friends, clients, family, because you don't have to connect with every client either. And you don't have to work with every client. You have a choice in who you get to be in business with.
You can also just choose to transform the relationships you have by just changing the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a choice in all of it, right?
If you
Like,
open up and be vulnerable about certain things, and like they'll automatically do the same thing, at least most of them.
they will, they truly will. All right. We normally go over numbers, but we've got some other things on the docket because we've got a full meeting.
Are you asking us to leave?
No, you can stay up here. But I do need a motion to end the PNC portion of the meeting. Second. Awesome. All right, Kevin.
All right, good.
You're up.
together.
Back to Kevin. I'm like, all right, you got.
This is even more time than we asked for. In being vulnerable, I want to go over my numbers real quick because I was all prepared as I was reading to them. So far this month this year, I've had 5 closings and with like 1.8. And the challenge, which is fine for spring, that's not a bad thing for me. The challenge is my pipeline is empty. It's like I don't have a closing on the book scheduled. And so I'm like not feeling super great about it. So I shared it with the ALC and it will change. Like, I'm very confident that everything will be fantastic in the year, but it does take a change of activities. I think one of the reasons I was playing pickleball this morning with a buddy, and he said he just got back from Hawaii, and he said I'm struggling returning to work. I'm in like beach mode. And because spring was set and I felt pretty good about it, I allowed myself, I've been to Florida 4 times, I think, so far this year. In 3 months, a lot. And,
Competition with John over here.
and I think it was,
Just Derek.
Derek just stays there.
No.
This is great. So I wanted to share the vulnerable where I'm at on that spot in my numbers. So you can't compare with the others because they're not sharing theirs, but I do want to share mine. The other piece I want to do is talk a little bit about what's going on with real estate in the future and how NAR changes things. So a couple questions that we've been getting on the front end is what do we do about commissions? Do we continue, do we need different paperwork now? People are having these conversations. And within our brokerage, we've always asked that you remember in all of this, commissions are negotiable, right? And we say 2.7 is the standard that we pay out for us as a brokerage. Doesn't mean the collective wasn't that way, but as a brokerage, this is what we do. And in the change, we're going to ask that's what we continue to do is pay that out. Now, what we really need to do is make sure that your clients on the list side know how that's happening. So I took some notes and I just want to go over these things because this last week was kind of fun and kind of got some clarity on a few things. We talked early on about these rule changes happening middle of July. We'd probably see some things. It's probably looking more now like we'll get new forms August 1st, like we always do. And that's probably when the changes will start to happen. So we'll have new forms and everything like we always do. Remember, when that happens, no longer will you be able to share commission on the MLS. You can't have a flat commission offering to agents across different brokerages publicly, right? That's what they're.
And that date has been chosen or no?
That
Or is it
date,
like
right?
projected?
It was gonna be mid-July. I think there's creating some more room that it's gonna be August. I think they're gonna allow for all that to happen. End of July, August 1st is probably what they're. There will be no compensation field in the MLS. One of the fun things this last week though is who is the Fannie, there you go. Thanks. They have said that the seller can still pay a buyer's commission. And that does not go against the seller paid closing costs, right? So that will be different than seller paid closing costs. They do not finance that for the buyer, but they recognize the seller can pay for that. So how you have language about how you're getting paid has to be very clear. No MLM, I'm just gonna go through my notes so I don't skip anything. No MLS field seller paid. You will, this is the next one, so I can say, you will be in some spot be able to write, seller is offering compensation or broker's compensation. You won't be able to write a flat amount, but that piece is in there. Remember, you cannot.
Is that like agent remarks or are they having a whole nother spot for that?
That where and everything is going to be, still working on that. So they're working on the MLS is working on this and the forms group of that is working on this. But in there, you will be able to broadly say, yes, sellers are offering a compensation, not what that amount is, not whatever. You'll go negotiate that. You'll reach out to the first call. You'll probably just say, hey, it's Kevin from Keller Williams reaching out because my clients are interested in this property. Just a few questions before we go to the show. Is there anything that's not on the MLS that I need to know? Great. By the way, is your client offering compensation or what are they willing to offering?
Is it really the client that's offering it or is it you as the agent offering it?
So here's the deal. This is the clarity part that it's going to be the seller offering that. Especially like Fannie and Freddie. It's the seller offering the compensation, not the seller's agent offering the compensation. So we'll get more clarity on what that looks like and everything, but that piece is there. So far, what am I saying? If you're a buyer's agent, the likelihood that you're still gonna get compensated through the seller's side is pretty likely. How you go about having those discussions, well, you'll have to change maybe the front end thing. You're not gonna see, oh, I just do this and I'm gonna get paid this amount. You have to have that conversation with the listing agent. Listing agents, I'm gonna skip this. Be careful when you're negotiating with different agencies. If you're offering, hey, everyone that's Keller gets a certain amount, everyone that's a CBB gets a different amount, you're violating a bunch of rules on that and doing the opposite of what this whole thing was about. So make sure you have that conversation with your seller of what that's going to be so that you can tell people on the front end. All compensation is negotiable. Compensation contracts between brokers. We will probably see something not on the MLS that gives you clarity on that on the front end, right? So with your offer, you'll make sure that you understand in the same way that we give compensation stuff to your clients right now as buyers, so they know how you're getting paid. There'll be something that between agents that say how we're getting paid, right? So
Like something that looks like a comp disclosure, but the sellers are signing it.
Yeah,
And
it's
the agents are
forms
signing
committee.
it.
Forms committee is working on that right now. Yeah, I said that already. Compensation by seller to listing broker directly to buyer broker should not be a problem currently. Oh, before, this is a big difference. And this is we're going to not create rules, but we're gonna create practices on this, right? We're gonna get good at this as a group. Right now, whenever you take a listing, how many hours do you have to get it in the MLS? 48, okay? The MLS is responsible for making sure before you show anyone a property that you have a buyer's agreement signed, right? They probably will not go into the MLS. You probably won't have to submit that to the MLS like you do listing contracts. But what we're going to do as a brokerage is ask that you submit those right away. So within 48 hours, we're gonna ask if you sign a new buyer within 48 hours, which you have to sign them either in a exclusive, non-exclusive, or facilitators agreement. Before you can show property, you have to have some arrangement done. We're gonna ask that you have 48 hours to get that into command. Right? Does that make sense? We can't we're not gonna penalize you, we're not gonna do that, but I wanna create the culture that, hey, not only are we getting contracts in right away, we're also getting buyer sides in right away. It will help us. One of the things that Heather has to do is look at the MLS to see what things are projected to close. If we all do that and we put our things in there that we're looking for buyers, and then we got our contracts in there more quickly, that helps everyone. Covers the bases on you guys getting penalized and covers a lot of different things.
I'm gonna ask you a question. If you signed paperwork, right, in any other situation, right? So you go to the doctor, you sign it, that paperwork usually gets sent to you. They send it to someone, right? We just did taxes. If that accountant did not actually submit your taxes on time, would you be upset? Okay, so what is different with us as real estate agents and business owners when we get documents signed? Trust me, I'm the same way. We do not submit the paperwork the way that it should be submitted. We don't submit the paperwork a lot of times until we're like, oh, it's about to close and I need to get paid, and I won't get paid unless this is submitted. Right? Like, I'm saying probably 60% of agents that are doing business in any office, that's how that happens, unless they have a transaction coordinator. So it is truly something that if anyone is nervous about getting paid, or what am I gonna get paid? Am I really representing buyers? This is the part to actually practice, is to get a buyer representation and turn it in.
All right, last 30 seconds or less. Two things. One, as listing agents, it will not be your job to require a proof of a contract between the buyer and or anything. That's not your job, it's the MLS's job. And, the other one was, there'll be more and more guidance as we go, right? So we don't know exactly things, but we'll move forward. However, in your conversations now, I believe that the best thing that you can do as a seller is to offer compensation to someone representing the buyer. That's a conversation that I have with my clients right now. Heather and I were talking a little bit about this. If I believe that now, I will also believe that after all these rules become in effect. So that's the conversation that you want to have is, well, should I wait till the August? Well, here's the deal. I think it's best to do it now and best to do it in August to offer that compensation. Let's go ahead and do it now because the market's right. Right? Good?
Awesome.
All right, I got
Thanks,
two
Kevin.
texts to stop talking, so I'm gonna stop talking.
All right, Candy.
I appreciate.
Those were not from me, by the way.
I know we're going along, but just
we're
to guys say, we actually
They were
have, Jason here with Renovation Sales to talk to us about, the company and how they can help our agents and mostly our clients. So, Jason, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Katie. I know we're running a little short on time, so I'll try to be brief, but thanks for having me today. Jason McGrath, I'm the owner of Renovation Sales. I live in Eden Prairie. I focus and serve the south and the west side of the Twin Cities market or metro. First time here in this office, but I've spent a lot of time with the collective in the past. I've been to the Lakes office. I've been to the Edina Center a couple of times. I recognize a few names from this office and faces as well. So really happy to be here. I'll be really brief and just share a couple of thoughts about what Renovation Sales is and who I am and how I can best support you in growing your businesses. Renovation Sales, we offer light or cosmetic renovations to homes really designed to transform the space. My goal is to partner with you as real estate agents and think about how can we best update that home pre-sale to maximize the sale price and minimize the time on the market. That's your goal every single day. But what I think I can offer is I can offer the support as your partner to get that work done. So you can focus on what you do best. I can focus on the execution of that renovations and really think about, again, that goal of maximizing that homeowner's profit when they sell their home. A little bit about me, my background. Prior to Renovation Sales, I spent 13 years in the healthcare industry. During that time, I sold solutions to employers for their employees to maintain and improve their health. With Renovation Sales, I have the opportunity to provide solutions to homeowners to transform their space, unlock hidden equity, and really bring joy to their life as they're going through this experience, particularly on the sales side. Those two industries and the way I approach that, they're very different, obviously, and the products are very different. But the way I approach it is exactly the same. So, how I got here is really during the pandemic or prior to the pandemic, I took a lot of satisfaction knowing that I was making a difference with employees in their health. But I knew something was missing. I knew I wasn't able to really create my own solutions. I knew I wasn't able to see people's faces when I was making that impact. And that's what I have the opportunity to do here in this market. And really, that's what brings me the most satisfaction. I'm going to touch on a couple of slides just as a background. Just this idea of unlocking hidden equity. Most of us here in the room and online, we understand this notion that we need to think a little bit differently about how we approach the selling of a home. And I should note, I'm talking a lot about the sale and the listing side of the equation. Everything that I'm saying today can apply to your buyers as well. So the process is the same, but really I think about how can I best support pre-sale. That's maybe our bread and butter, but the notion and the concepts are the same. This quote on the bottom, I find this pretty powerful. Many of you may agree with this, that nearly half of millennials said they would max out their budget to avoid renovation. As I'm out in the market talking to clients, real estate agents, partners, I would say it's not only millennials. I think most people would love a move-in ready house. And that's the reason that Renovation Sales is here to be your partner. Next slide really thinks about language. And I think this is important also. We hear the term return on investment a lot, ROI, and we try to measure success in those terms. What I find is that language is a little bit difficult. Sometimes it's a little ambiguous. People don't really understand what ROI really means. So when I think about how to approach a client and work with you as your partner, I like to focus on the term profit. Let's think about additional dollars that would be in their pocket as a result of making simple investments in their home to get that home ready to sell.
UNFORTU. Is the T.
This next slide just brings us to life a little bit. You know, there's 3 different price points here, and the focus of each of them was a kitchen transformation. That is what we see most common is a transformation of a kitchen, followed by a primary bathroom, and then I would say a little bit of everything else falls after those 2. But 3 different price points. When I'm working with a real estate agent, you know, the first question I ask is if you list this house today, what would be that price point? Thinking about comps in the neighborhood, what could be the price point if we invested in renovation? And then we start to really strategize around that. So focusing on the one in the middle, this house was, we did a kitchen transformation, took about 3.5 weeks to complete the project. Had we done nothing, $775. That homeowner invested $47,000 to make this transformation with paint, countertops, updating the flooring, lighting, etc. Listed the house at $899, ultimately sold for $750. The bottom line is the important one. That profit number, 250, 128, 39. These are dollars that are net of the investment that they made in the renovation because of the transformation and the dollars they invested on those renovations pre-sale. Any questions so far? I've got about a minute left, so I know people are getting a little antsy. And I did bring in lunch for after this. Next slide, just
There you go. They're like, I'm in.
Oh, now we're.
There's the lunch bird, right? You know, this is the other thing that I like to just talk about when I'm partnering with you or meeting with your clients and helping support that conversation is just imagine that possibility. We saw that in the previous slide of some case studies, but if you make the investment in the renovation and you net an additional $100,000 on that sale of that home, what could you do with that? It's vacation. It's additional down payments. It's the ability to make renovations on the new house. The possibilities are really endless, but just thinking a little bit differently of how can we handle some of these objections that we all hear. Why would I invest in a property that I'm moving out of because of that? This last slide that I have, and I promise this is the last one, really just talks about the process. You know, I'm talking really fast today. I'd love a one-on-one or have the opportunity to go a little bit deeper with any of you to share a little bit more. I do have some brochures in the back as well that I give a little bit about me. But this is generally the process that I work with agents. You know, it's really a 5-step process, but we can combine a couple of them. As your partner, we're working together and we're sitting with that homeowner if it's appropriate and thinking about what is the scope of the project that we'd like to achieve. And that's really step 1 and 2, talking about the property, understanding a little bit about the home. That step 3 is in that same conversation. I can offer a financing solution to that homeowner. Most of the time, buying and selling, you've got a lot of stress, maybe not a lot of cash that can be used for the investment that we're talking about. I have a solution, and that solution is a financing solution, financing opportunity. It's up to $80,000. It gives them the cash to invest in those renovations. They have 6 months, no interest, no payments, time period to pay that off. How that really functions is they pay at closing. Invest in the renovations, sell for $100K more, use the proceeds to pay off the renovation, and it costs that homeowner nothing to take advantage of that financing solution. I do have a design team. Our design team comes into play as we finalize the scope and get ready to get to work. They come into play and they are experts in design. They look at national trends, they look at regional trends, they look at neighborhood trends. So they're thinking about what's the scope of our project? How can we maximize the investment that we're asking them to make? The last thing we want to do is price that home out of the market by making the investments outside of what the market is. So that's where they really come into play. They think about what is going to maximize the impact of those renovations. And then I get to work. I manage the project. I've got a team of subcontractors that I know and I've vetted that can help execute this project that we started to work on. Knowing that many of you may have resources that you know and trust, that's okay. I can use those resources as well. So my goal is to be your partner and take this piece of the puzzle, if you will, off your plate. So using your resources, happy to do so. But that's where I really get to work. This entire 5-step process, 4 to 6 weeks, that can vary depending on the scale and scope of our project. But I think the important message is as you're starting to door knock and doing some of these other things and thinking about how do you generate your leads, a piece of the puzzle can be, I've got a resource for you that can help maximize the value of your project. Bring me into the conversation wherever it makes sense. happy to support you and think about how can I make your day. With that, I'll wrap. I'll let you guys grab some lunch, but would love to continue this conversation at any time. And again, my name is Jason with Renovation South.
All right, so wants and needs, just remember to send those to Lydia by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that she can get those out in email. So any listings, any buyers, Heather, you. We'll bring out lunch in a second.
I just do the.
A home at May 1st in Watertown, let me know. They're coming soon right now. For Dan Kokish for his client, he's out of town.
Awesome.
You know what time?
Yeah, I was like, wow. It's like, I don't have
So you know, this.
I'm sure my schedule is.
Oh, yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
I always just like walk in
We're talking
one
about.
day, the wheel of cash, it just be like absolute. Yeah, it really
Oh,
is.
am I?
Yeah,
That would be
I mean, that was
We want to shoot on that. To get out of hand.
We're all here this.
Yeah, well, when they're in the boardroom and they're just like.
Discussing it.
Be good.
That's such a good.
It is a great one.
My favorite.
I haven't, like, I don't ever watch.
Play pickleball.
Like I used to, but that's one.
That's what I'll watch.
On,
Oh, yeah.
weeks at the Civic Center, they're having the mic.
It's pretty amazing.
And like midget wrestling, whatever.
Wait.
I believe it's, yeah, I think it's at the very end, of April. I can.
That is absolutely right there. I wanna.
Like,
I played a little bit last year.
Random wrestling ones, but like I can't imagine. It's
Micro
Well,
wrestling.
I know,
My guys in high school play every week.
but
Well,
that's
that's
where your age.
My Torsen stuff.
I know, I'm gonna take it.
I figured
on her
I
hand.
figured if he was texting me, it was.
On both knees.
Yeah, I think, well,
Okay.
this year, you know.
Yeah,
No,
there's a meniscus,
Yeah.
So they would play
But
But I
figured.
So it works.
She
She really.
seems like the kind that'll be like, yeah.
I want that one. Once I get.
Gotta get Dave more.
They're all gonna be.
That's a good question.
They're 3 level.
Best on how much?
I don't know, I haven't looked them up.
Oh, you haven't looked at it?
I'm gonna imagine.
I'm just gonna use that to like figure it out for her.
I just got it and I sent it down.
Sunday?
and then said-
The 21st.